I've been going back and forth on this a lot, and I think I'm finally ready to do my trend predictions for 2025 when it comes to knitting, crochet, general fabric arts. So yeah, let's get into it. And what I'm going to be working on while I'm doing this is I'm going to be frogging a few of the things I made in the last few years. Starting with this big red one, you can't see, but it's just really coming apart. It's quite bubbly acrylic. I think I can use the acrylic for something else. But yeah, so I'm just going to be nipping into that. All right then, so starting off with my predictions for 2025. I do think this is going to be the year that we go 50 Shades of Brown. I don't think anyone is loving the color of the year. I've seen like it compared to so many bodily functions. I think at the best you can say it looks like ice cream maybe. But yeah, this just kind of, I've seen it described as a nothing brown, and I'm there. But I actually think maybe there's a bit more room for maneuver with this brown than there have been with previous years, where it's been a very kind of clear, specific color. I think we're not going to get lots of projects in this color at all. And I think that that's borne out by the fact that you can kind of see what a lot of the big yarn companies have got coming up, or the new colors they're releasing. There is no chocolate brown in there, and obviously that could change, but I also don't see it with many of the indie dyers either. I just don't think that this is a color that's inspiring people, but I do think we're probably going to start seeing brown as a little bit of a kind of a neutral come forward more. You know, we've had like a lot of gray and navy over the last few years. I think we're going to see a lot of beiges, a lot of browns, but I think we're also going to see designers pushing back against this quite muted color of the year and combining the browns with jewel tones. Maybe we might see some of it like this kind of beigey brown I've got on with the highlight embroidery bits, or I've seen quite a lot of the porcelain sweater being done with brown as the background color instead of cream, and I actually think that's quite nice. So yeah, I think we're going to see that. Staying on this jumper, actually, I think another thing we're going to see is what I think is Tyrolean knitting. And that's basically cables with embroidery on them. This is inspired by seeing this post on the knitting subreddit and just how much attention it got and how excited people were by this, and the number of people commenting like, oh, I wish I had a pattern for this. And people like offering to kind of, you know, people who had the pattern offering to share it and stuff. I mean, I love this. I think it's gorgeous. And I think we're going to see quite a lot of this, partly as a kind of pushback, like I mentioned, to the whole kind of chocolate brown thing. But I think also a lot of people got into knitting during the pandemic. Not all of us, obviously, like I was knitting way before then. But I think that a lot of people are now getting to a point where maybe they have enough jumpers, or maybe they're kind of like looking for something extra. And this is a really fantastic way to either revitalize an old jumper that you made by embroidering on it, or to just try something new. I've managed to do the collar, and I got this much out of it, just because of how, like, I really went really hard on these seams. But yeah, gonna crack on. So I think that the next trend that we're gonna see, that I feel quite hopeful about, is what I'm gonna call scrappy layers, and that's layering lots and lots of knits on top of each other. And I think that's partly going to take the form of people wanting to be able to wear their summer knits through the year. Obviously everything's very seasonal at the minute, and a lot of content creators, you know, you see them doing stuff of like, these are going to be my summer knits, and like designers releasing knits for it. But I think your average knitter, we take quite a long time to make stuff. Maybe, you know, you get inspired at the start of the season, you don't really finish till the end, you haven't had a chance to wear it. So I think that there is going to maybe be a move to how can we use layering and things like that to combine our knits, to get some more wear out of them. But I also see this happening in the kind of knitwear that we've seen designed recently, for example, the Sophie scarf. And the fact that every single designer seems to have their own version of that. It's a tiny little scarf that can be worn in conjunction with a lot of other things, can't it? And I think that there's a lot of projects like that, like these vest tops I've seen a lot of, and obviously the Y2K, oh God, is that it? Yeah, the early 2000s vibe is still very alive. That was very much layering. I think that we might see more and more of people wearing, say, a knitted vest on top of a knitted tee, maybe with a knitted cardigan or something. I think that we're going to, you know, people can take it in a lot of different directions. You can kind of take it in quite a 1950s, very chic and precise, like monocolor, but like all your knits, like lots of different types of knits, but all in the same color. And that would be like a really good spring or autumn outfit, I think. But you might also see people take it in the direction of, you know, kind of like maybe slightly like apocalyptic, sort of fashion sense. I think that this, looking at where fashion is taking its inspiration from, like as we move through the decades, I do remember it being around 2005 that layering was such a thing, and it was layering very thin items of clothing on top of each other and kind of building up this kind of what was at the time called like hobo chic look. And I think that it's a really like it's potentially a really versatile trend that can cover a lot of different styles, and it gives people a chance to wear all of their different knits and to also combine it. I think we might see content creators using this as a chance to like, this is how you can get like 5 outfits out of, you know, one set of knitwear or something. So yeah, I'm kind of hopeful that that's going to happen. A lot of this is me manifesting what I would like to see as well. Okay, and so for my next prediction, another one that I originally saw on Reddit, but then realized I think it's representative of something bigger that's going on in the yarn arts communities, is I think we might be looking at giant amigurumi. So it was inspired by seeing this really sweet toadstool of someone who thought she was just making a little amigurumi toadstool, but then actually ended up making, as she herself described it, a toddler by using the plush yarn. And I think we might start seeing a lot more of this. Like, you can kind of see the reaction people had to it. We've had the micro crochet for a few years now, and I think that there is definitely a feeling in the crochet community, not by everyone, but by a lot of people, that crochet is kind of looked down on, that it's seen as not being as talented or as creative as knitting, or doesn't require as much effort or whatever. And I think we might start seeing both a pushback against the micro crochet trend, but also a kind of carving out space for when crochet really holds its own. Like the person who made this mentioned she had to put dowels in it and stuff. But I think that this is something that you could only make with crochet. You could not make this with knitting, I don't think, and have it have any structure. And I think that we might see more of this. And also, like, you know, one of the very first things we saw with AI when it came on the scene was people like faking these giant amigurumi type things. And at the time, everyone was like very much like, no, this is impossible. But now I think that there might be some people who are getting a bit like, okay, but how big can we go? Can we go bigger? It's also a fantastic way to just use up so much yarn, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of people have been buying the blanket yarn and the really thick, chunky Bernat yarn and everything. And this is the kind of project that's going to use a lot of that. And I think that this might also be linked to, I think we're going to see a fall off of crochet markets as much. It's become very apparent that not everyone can make a living through crochet. There are going to be a lot of people who maybe invested a lot of money in a crochet business and then realize they can't actually make that money back at stalls. Like, there's a lot of people making exactly the same thing at craft stores, reporting lower and lower sales. And I think if people have got a gigantic stash of this thick yarn and they're looking to kind of build their online profile and everything, making giant amigurumi is a good way to go in terms of like grabbing that attention and everything. So hopefully we're going to see more of these mushroom guys. Okay. So my next one, which I think we are very much already seeing, like, I don't think this is a trend that's going to develop. I think this is a trend that is here and that we are just going to see continue into this year, is optical illusion knitting and crocheting. So I've got some examples here of some of the ones I've seen that have been, you know, kind of really popular on my feeds and stuff in the last few years. And I think that they are so intricate and so amazing and so talented, but they pretty much use the same amount of wool as a normal jumper. So I think that what we're going to see is people just, you know, we are probably heading into a recession. I think the UK is already in a recession, I think, when I was filming this. I don't personally think that the US economy is going to have long-term benefit from having a second round of Trump. I think we're going to, you know, people are already talking about having to tighten their belts. If he brings in those tariffs, that's going to affect a lot of knitters on both sides of the Atlantic in terms of where they normally buy their wool, how much wool costs. And I think we're going to see more and more people wanting to make the yarn they buy go further. And I think the challenge that optical illusions present is so interesting. And it's basically, I feel like getting like 10 times as much entertainment and kind of like of a challenge out of yarn for a jumper than you would just knitting a normal jumper, as it were. We're seeing this in crochet as well. There was this spiral using the self-striping yarn, which I think, you know, was really, really popular and everyone really liked. And I think it's opened up people's eyes to kind of the potential of those kind of yarns. We're seeing a lot more of these kind of yarns coming on the market. Obviously, there's the granny square yarn from last year, which they're now kind of like moving out into like loads and loads of different variations of it. I think that that I would count as a sort of optical illusion thing of like, you knit it in a certain way, you get something. We've had color pooling be so popular. Yeah, just looking forward to seeing that, and it fits with where we are in theory in terms of cannibalizing the past, in terms of fashion trends and stuff. Because another thing that kind of I remember being a big thing in 2005 was quite kind of like sharp geometric patterns, and I think that that's definitely something that's we're gonna see more and more of. So my last kind of trend prediction slash manifestation for 2025 is I would like to see a lot more. Well, not I would like to see. What I think we're going to see is people almost making a kind of a feature of mistakes. And like all my trend predictions, some of this originally came from Reddit, and then it was like looking around at other places. So crochet Reddit is notoriously toxic positivity in terms of like, you post something on there like, hey, what do you guys think? Does this work? Is this like not like, I don't know about the color combination, or I made this mistake, and then it just gets flooded with people being like, oh my gosh, I love it, it's amazing, like it's a feature, like I love it. And it's just like, okay, fine, if someone's like genuinely having a breakdown, but you'll see people genuinely like saying things like, hey, can you help me improve? I want to improve this. And just people being like, it's a feature, don't change a thing. And it's like, is that helpful? But yeah, that's where we're at. And we're seeing more and more of that in terms of, people like arguing that things like twisted stitches are a design feature in knitting. This is how I'm getting on with the frogging, by the way. It's really not moving fast. But yeah, so I think that we're going to see more and more of that. And I think we're going to see it in two different ways. I think that there's going to be even more embracing of the fact that, like the nature of something handmade is that it is full of errors. And that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to get. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that there's going to be a push to distinguish homemade kind of like fabric and garments and things from shop bought ones and fast fashion ones, where, at the minute we have people putting in their labels as if it was a fast fashion brand of like, you can have your own label. But I think that there's going to be as well, maybe people have like a signature mistake they make where they kind of like always have like an artful little ladder at some point, or every pattern has got like one kind of missed repeat or something. I think we could see that. And I think we could also see this almost as a pushback against AI, because at the minute the way that we identify AI is to say, look out for stitches that aren't defined. But what we're also seeing beyond undefined stitching, as AI reproductions of crochet get better, we're seeing people also point out look out for something that's too perfect, where the tension is too uniform. And I think that is going to become a way for designers on platforms like Etsy, which are just overrun with AI patterns, to actually kind of signpost that this is a real pattern and a real article. People who sell crochet stuff online who want to kind of signpost that this is a genuine thing, like having your signature kind of, obviously we could just do it by like embroidering things on or whatever, but I do think that we will see a group of people kind of really embrace the idea of like a mistake is what makes it, which personally I like. Everything I've ever made myself has got a mistake that I can look to. None of them are deliberate, but I definitely, with my fashion sense, I like things that are a little bit messy. I like things that are a little bit where a kind of flaw highlights how great everything else looks, kind of thing. Yeah, so I'm really interested to see if that does come true. Like I said, some of these are predictions, some of them are manifestations. That last one I think is slightly more wistful thinking, just because I think it would be a really interesting way for us to go. But yeah, those are my trend predictions for 2025. Thanks for listening along. Like, subscribe, do whatever you want. Bye.